What's up, traders? In this video, I will be performing a market forecast on the DXY. So stay tuned. If you guys don't already have the DXY on your watch list, I definitely encourage you guys to include it and to have a look at it from time to time, because the DXY, as you may or may not know, can be used as a correlation tool for your USD pairs. Now, it definitely isn't a direct candle by candle correlation, but it can be used as a form of extra confluence when identifying and establishing your directional bias for the USD based pairs that you're trading. So this video, I'm going to be essentially sharing my outlook for the DXY for the remainder of May and also for the month of June. As is always the case with these market forecast videos, I'm going to be focusing on the weekly, daily, and 4-hour time frames in order to give you guys a more medium to longer term forecast. And we're going to kick things off here on the weekly time frame. We can see that price action is trading within this nice, very clean bullish range. We have had a pullback into our equilibrium, and we have seen our internal structure shifting bullish in here, which has signaled the start of our continuation phase. I think though that we can all agree that price action has essentially been consolidating in this area around our equilibrium. Now, the overall objective for this weekly range would be a violation of our weekly week high up here at 114,778 roughly. But in order for us to get there, we will first need to see a resumption of this current internal bullishness, which means we would first need to see a violation of this weekly internal week high. Now, this weekly range that I have marked out is essentially my daily structure, because remember, when it comes to that relationship between internal and external, the internal structure comes together to facilitate what we see on the external structure. And so the fact that our internal structure, which is the daily, is pointing bullish means that we are now seeing that bullish continuation phase. Now, if we focus in on specifically our internal structure, we can see that internally we've had that pullback, which has come in to mitigate this extreme weekly demand zone. And we have had a really nice, strong bullish reaction off of that weekly demand zone. This essentially means that our internal bullish continuation is taking place. However, more recently, as price action came in to interact with this previous weekly supply zone, we saw price action sweeping the high of that weekly supply, and we've seen a bearish reaction take place as a result of that sweep. Now, the overall objective still remains for initially a violation of this week internal week high before then ultimately price looks to target this week high. But the weekly time frame does suggest that we could be seeing some bearish price action down towards this weekly demand, which chains off of this initial extreme weekly demand which our internal pullback has come into. We do have a nice pool of liquidity which sits just above this weekly demand, and price action could look to target this liquidity pool before potentially resuming with the underlying bullish trend which we currently see in the market. And with this area, if we are to see a mitigation, I'm anticipating just a short-term bearish reaction before price action resumes. And the reason that is because this is a previously unmitigated POI which formed during our pullback phase. If we now drop down to that daily time frame in order to have a better look at what this internal weekly range looks like, we can see that we've got this bullish daily range that price action is trading in. And again, this is the weekly internal range which we have just looked at. We can see that we did have our daily pullback come in to mitigate that weekly demand zone which sits at the extreme. We did have a very nice strong bullish reaction out of that POI with our internal structure shifting bullish as well to facilitate that daily bullish continuation that's currently taking place. And so because of the fact that we are trading within this bullish range, and because our bullish continuation is already taking place, our overall objective on this time frame would be a violation of our daily week high, which sits at 107,348. So call it 107,350s. If we now focus in on our most recent internal daily range, we can see that this is our last bullish internal break of structure, which means that this is our current most recent, at the time of recording this video, internal bullish range. And so again, we had a very nice deep pullback towards the extreme of that internal range. Price action mitigated daily demand, and we have now seen an initial bullish reaction out of that POI. Now, because this internal range is also bullish, the anticipation for this internal range would be a violation of this daily internal week high. Now, the internal structure that I'm talking about here is going to be 4-hour structure. We're going to be having a look at that in just a minute. Interestingly enough though, this initial bullish reaction has come in to interact with this daily supply zone. Now, the reason I marked out this daily supply is because it effectively led to the violation of this internal low. Price action has now come into that daily supply, and at the close of Friday, the 24th of May, we have seen a bearish reaction coming out of that POI. And this is interesting because depending on what happens next in this final week of May, we could be looking at two very different scenarios on the DXY for the month of June. And what I mean by this is, if this daily supply continues to hold, and if this supply pushes price lower to violate our internal strong low, then we could easily see price action trade all the way down to target this weekly demand, which chains off of that extreme weekly demand that we looked at on the weekly time frame. Now, obviously, initially price action would look to come in and interact with this daily demand zone, and there is a chance that it could bounce off of this area and continue trading bullish in order to target the daily week high. However, because of the proximity of this POI to this liquidity pool that sits just above the weekly demand zone here, I would say that this is more likely to produce just a short-term reaction before price action drops down to grab that liquidity pool in order to potentially fuel the next move. And so if this POI does hold, we could definitely be seeing a violation of our internal strong low. If, however, we just see a short-term reaction out of this POI before a continuation of not only our bullish continuation phase, but also our internal bullishness, then obviously we'd be looking at a violation of this internal week high initially, and then ultimately a daily week high violation up here. Another thing that suggests we very well could be seeing some bearishness step into the DXY and a violation of this internal strong low is just the price delivery that we can see in this area. Focus in on how we had a very high momentum, very sharp, aggressive bearish push to the downside, which generated this break, and look at how we had a very corrective, not as high volume move back up into this POI. So our price delivery, particularly in this area, does suggest that we could be seeing a violation of this internal strong low. And in order to get an even clearer picture of what that internal looks like, to end things off, we're going to be looking at the 4-hour time frame. And as we can see, our 4-hour time frame is bullish as well. We do have that bullish 4-hour range, which is effectively our internal bullish range that we just looked at. Now, what's interesting with the 4-hour time frame is that we are essentially still trading within the 4-hour pullback. And the reason I say this is because this is our most recent 4-hour internal range, and as you can see, that internal range is still bearish. And because the internal is still bearish, it is essentially still facilitating our pullback phase. Now, we did see a very strong bullish reaction off of this extreme daily demand, but we haven't yet gotten the confirmation that our 4-hour bullish continuation phase has begun. That confirmation will only truly be obtained after we see a violation of our internal strong high in here, because that's the point, as things stand, where our internal will shift bearish. So when we look at our price action here on the 4-hour time frame, because of the fact that internally we're still bearish, and as we are coming off of this daily supply zone, there is the potential that we see a resumption of this internal bearishness, a resumption of effectively this pullback to target our 4-hour internal week low. And if we see a violation of this week low, then our 4-hour strong low is going to be vulnerable to being violated. Now, there definitely is a scenario as well where price action continues to trade bearish, violates our internal week low, but does not violate our 4-hour strong low. It might just sweep that strong low. And if that were to occur, and if we were to see a push off in the bullish direction to violate, let's say, this high, if this is the high that ends up breaking our week low, then we would essentially be seeing a new internal range form, which would look something like this, with this being our new 4-hour internal strong low. Our initial 4-hour strong low would still be in place, and then we'd still be looking to target the 4-hour week high. But as it stands, based on the price delivery that we can currently see in here and the fact that we are interacting with this daily supply, we could very well be seeing not only a violation of this internal week low, but also a violation of the 4-hour strong low. And if we do see a violation of the 4-hour strong low, that would then open the door for price action to trade down towards this weekly demand in here. And this would be the POI where we could potentially see a resumption of this bullish range that we are currently trading within. So very interesting price action that we can see here on the DXY. Definitely something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on for the remainder of May, but then also going into the month of June, because this is something that can inform, as I said at the start of the video, some of our analysis that we perform on stuff like Euro USD, on stuff like GBP USD or USD Yen. As always, I appreciate you guys so much watching, and I'll speak to you in the next one.